way the internet works. Nobody does it with feature films, and that's just not how things happen. So once it hit in the 43,000, I had to change the way I viewed the numbers, and I started seeing them as, I filled Angel Stadium. That's Angel Stadium, completely sold out. The weird thing that continued to happen is the numbers continued to accelerate. 7, 8, 10,000 a day, every day. And on the weekends it would go higher, up to, like I said, 15,000 is where it peaked. Eventually I began to realize that I was filling Angel Stadium more often than they were, which was weird. 3 weeks ago, algorithm hit 853,000, which is the population of San Francisco, which is where this movie was filmed. Last Friday, not yesterday, but the week before that, it hit 1 million views. I noticed something really strange that happened after 1 million views, is that the views dropped radically, and I thought it was related to the 1 million views, and I thought possibly some hackers had like a botnet that were kind of hacking the numbers and increasing them, and that may be what happened, and they just turned the number off once it hit. They turned all their bots off once it hit 1 million. I had another theory that actually there's a bit of crossover with the audience between Algorithm and Avengers: Age of Ultron, and people can only consume so much entertainment, and they're saving their entertainment time for Ultron. And so Algorithm's views have dropped from 12,000 to 14,000 on a typical weekend to about 3,000 or 4,000 yesterday. And I think that that's because of Ultron. I'm curious, like, my wife and I noticed that there was a drop in views during Super Bowl, but it went right back up the next day. So it's possible that once people have seen Ultron, it will go back up. I don't know. It's just this weird experiment that I don't know how it worked. I've had friends try to trace it, and they're like, it doesn't conform to any distribution vector that we understand. The way I came up with the idea for the movie is that I was talking to a sociology professor friend of mine, and he said that Bill Gates is going around saying, our country is not producing enough educated people to fill the tech sector. We have to import people from all over the world, China, India. If you live in the Bay Area, which you do, and it's incredibly diverse. And the main reason is because we have to import experts. Our country just doesn't make enough. And I was like, well, how would you do that? The best way to do that would be to get people to to understand that technology is cool. And the best way to do that is through Hollywood. We have the greatest idea propagation machine that we spend on valueless entertainment that is an opiate today to keep us going to work, but has no long-term value. For the most part, there's some great stuff coming out, but for the most part, that's what Hollywood produces. I was like, we can do better. We can create something that makes technology cool again. That was one idea that I wanted to do. The other idea was that I wanted to show the world by computers has the capacity to change the world, like fundamentally. No limit to what an individual can do if they teach themselves computer code and if they understand computers. A great example is, again, Steve Wozniak basically built a computer, and he had his marketer friend Steve Jobs partner with him. And 30, 40 years later, it's the biggest company in the world. But it was started out of a garage with little to no capital, no money. Another example is Facebook, which was written for almost nothing by somebody who had a code, and is now there's a story about a hacker. stayed home all day. He broke into the CIA. He also broke into a bank in the Cayman Islands. He also took down Matt something. He was a writer for Wired. He broke into his account and stole erased all of his passwords and his computers in order to get Matt's really coveted Twitter name, which is 3 letters. A 3-character Twitter name that are highly coveted. And Cosmo the God wanted Matt, so he took it. This is a 15-year-old. And realizing the power that a 15-year-old kid can have if he's intelligent, if he's dedicated, if he teaches himself certain things, was profound to me. This is compounded by a company out of England called Raspberry Pi, and they make Linux computers for $30. A functioning computer for $30 that you can plug into your TV and it will run Linux, which you can learn to code on, which can be a server, and I used it for as a file server for a while. Use it as print service. You can do anything you can do on a computer. It's a little slower than most, but it's 10,000 times more powerful than the computer that we send in. So it's like it'll do what you need to do. I started learning from it, and I realized that by sending my scripts to Los Angeles, I was essentially asking gatekeepers for permission, and that technology had changed the way the world fundamentally works, and that we don't have to ask permission, and that I didn't have to ask permission anymore. And what I really needed to do was, like computer coders, write a really good script, and that script became the currency that people were interested in. It was good enough, and they're like, I had actors and everybody involved saying, we don't expect money, we just want to do something that isn't a lame corporate video or some stupid self-indulgent independent movie that goes nowhere other than an exploration of how this guy feels at the moment, no legitimate plot or conclusion. And we don't want to make more. And corporate videos, they're like, we want to be part of something that means something, that's good. And it was weird for me to understand that money wasn't the motivator people were after. It was largely irrelevant. What they were after was to do something that had value, that had intrinsic value. They wanted their work to mean something. And it's still a concept that I'm wrestling with, simply because I was born here and taught capitalist propaganda. But with the acknowledgement that algorithm was going to get pirated, with the acknowledgement that the cast and crew weren't interested in money, I came to the understanding of something that was pivotal for me and one of the biggest ideas I've ever had, which is that technology is eliminating the need for trade. Trade is based on, capitalism is based on the idea of scarcity. And technology, computers are making it so that there's zero cost of production. And with zero cost of production, it means that things cost nothing to copy, which means that they cost nothing, almost nothing to distribute on scale. This naturally segues into a future that I think is better than the one that we have now, which is essentially open, and rather it should be. And I think we get the choice. We get the choice of what the future looks like. And we're getting technology that are on the scale of the power of like nuclear fusion in our hands. And we get to choose whether we're going to make atomic bombs with it or whether we're going to fly to Mars and colonize Mars. That's a choice we get to make. And I got to make it as the owner of it. I wrote the script, I executive produced it, I directed it, I edited it. I own it 100%. And everybody I work with, like I check with them morally to say, is it okay to put it on YouTube? This isn't standard movie distribution. You may lose credibility as an actor. They may categorize you as like, you're a YouTube star and you don't have value here in the industry. Are you okay with it? And they weren't. And so it's strange. It's strange to be in the middle of a revolution. I forgot your name. Kate is part of the open source movement. Open source is the software version of what I do. They're more liberal than I am because I haven't said you can take this code and parse it and fork it and do whatever you want with it. That's not what I've done with algorithm yet, although I'm considering it, depending on what happens in the next few months. But I am the open source movement, the music industry, the book industry, the movie industry. We're at a strange place where we are the first set of our society that is part of this zero production cost world. We are in a transitional phase, and Hollywood has no idea what to do. They're panicking. They're trying to lock down the internet. They're trying to lock down and maintain capitalism because capitalism is way better than communism. And just communism doesn't work. Capitalism is way better than feudalism. Like, we got to the moon because of capitalism. We got cars that drive themselves because of capitalism. It's a good system, but it has serious inadequacies that we can do better. So I don't know what the future of algorithms will be.
Want to take any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I've said a lot. I doubt I've said anything controversial in this audience, but if you guys have any questions about any of that, you might have more questions about the movie specifically after it's done.
Joel, what's your next project?
What I'm toying with now, I'm trying to have the production model I'm coming to is I want to continue the free future. That's what I'm calling it, where everything is free, and it's trying to figure out an economic model that makes it sustainable for me and the cast and crew to do, and still be able to have creative freedom so that I'm not beholden to producers or financiers that assume they have creative control when they have no creative taste. So I'm trying to build a model on that, and based on algorithms views, the million views are awesome as a number. When you start to dig in, you start to see that the average view duration in the United States, which is where it's been viewed more than any other place, is about 20 minutes. And I don't think people are turning it off. I think what's happening is that people can only sit on their phones in the subway or justify at work before they have to hit pause key about 20 minutes. And then they pick it up on another device before they start watching it later. So I've realized that 20 minutes is about the maximum I can get away with on. Do you need me out of your way? Do I need to move? Am I in your way? Increase intimacy. I realized that 20 minutes was an ideal length. 20 to 30 minutes, maybe as short as 10. So I came up with the idea of, if I'm going to continue to do that, to do algorithm type stuff, that distribution model, then I need to do it in a way that naturally lends itself to that rate, which is episodic. To do it on the internet is easy because most people who put their stuff up online, there's assumed acceptable levels of production value. There's this guy named Hank Green who wrote a great essay on it. If you don't follow Hank Green, he's kind of like pioneering and talking about what's going on. He said that generally what people are interested in is they're not interested in TV level quality. They're interested in slightly better than they can do because it encourages them to, oh, well, this is awesome and I can share it with my friends and then I can go out and make my own video. I think Hank Green's onto something, but I don't think what he's done is there's this wild thing that YouTube does and that technology does, is that they build these things and they don't know what they're for. Like they have no idea what a tool is for. They're just like, hey, I built this shape. What can you do with it? They're like, well, I can use the hammer to smash stuff. I can use the hammer to dig holes in the ground. I can use the hammer to pull teeth in a very inefficient way. So they build these tools, they don't know what they're for. And Google has built the most powerful video distribution platform the world has ever seen. It's in almost every single country, probably actually China, despite what China would have us believe. And it's on every single device. And they're using it for cat videos. And they're using it for what I call attention porn. And so I'm kind of asking, can it be done? Can it be used for something better? Can we make quality art on YouTube and distribute it that way? Can I do that in an economically sustainable model? So the next series is a web series with minimum of TV production level quality, with better than TV level writing. And so that's the format that I want to do. The project itself is, and I haven't really said this publicly, so are we streaming online? Because it's going to be out. Okay. I'm kind of, California's in the middle of a drought. According to JPL, it's the worst drought in recorded history. And in 1 year, there won't be any water in the reservoirs. We have giant aquifers under the ground that we're currently mining, for lack of a better term, welling, whatever the word is. That's where our water is going to be coming from very shortly, but that's going to run out, at least in the world that I'm creating. And so the story takes place in a California, in a west coast of the United States, where there is no more water anywhere. And the United States recognizes that infrastructurally it cannot sustain the west coast and decides to abandon everything west of the Rockies. So it's a story that takes place in that world. And I was asking myself, like, how do we get from our current society into a dystopia? And what does that look like? And what might the downfall of the United States look like pragmatically? My goal as a filmmaker isn't just to tell good stories, but to make things as realistic as possible. And so I want to base it in a realistic possibility. I did some research. My first thought was desalinization plants, like of how the U.S. would get out of this. The problem is they take a long time to build. They're currently exploring a desalinization plant in, I think, Carlsbad. It's been being built for like 5 to 7 years, and it's still not done. It takes an enormous amount of energy to run these things. Are we ready with the audio? Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's not working yet. My buddy's like, well, when the drought actually gets close, the government's going to say, here's $400 trillion. Let's go build desalinization plants all up and down the coast. A desalinization plant can sustain about 1 million people. There are 50 million people in California, and that doesn't include Oregon, Washington, or Baja. That's just California. So you're going to need 50 desalinization plants built within a 2 to 3 year period. That's not going to happen. The other thought I had was, well, the military does war in the desert. They've got to have a way of getting water. They probably have efficient desalinization plants. And then I thought to myself, how big of an army can they sustain? And the biggest I've ever heard is about 500,000 people. Again, 500,000, 50 million, not sustainable. So the idea really came as a kind of pragmatism. It's really like the symmetry of a bunch of different things. Not symmetry, what's it called? When things come together and create something bigger than the whole, greater than the sum of their parts. Is that word? That's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, it's that idea is coming together. So hopefully I can find a way to, hopefully the 1 million people who watched Algorithm, or 250,000 if they watched it on 4 different devices, 4 different times, I've built up enough audience to gain a kind of credibility where I can start funding before the movie exists and make it economically sustainable before it exists, so that I can then give it away once it's done. And that's the goal. I don't know if it's possible. No one's ever done it. Hank Green hasn't done it. His model, he has made $2 million. He has 1 billion views on YouTube. And it's cost him $5 million to make his videos. So that's, if he's running a business, it's not good. And YouTube is rapidly shutting down the ability for advertisers to product placement other than either ad engine. I have gotten 1 million views for almost all of those views. I've had ads, and I've made $2,000, which is really bad. Like, it costs more than that to make algorithm, and nobody on algorithm got paid. If I had paid people to make algorithm, it would have been a $700,000, not 2,000, which is how much money it's made. So hopefully I can figure it out. See. Any other questions? No? Awesome. I'm an introvert.